This is the BBC.
Simon Mayo, 88 to 91 FM, BBC Radio 2.
Oh, righty-ho, there you are. Welcome to another Confessions podcast from your friends at Radio 2.
BBC Radio 2.
Well, why would you only play a Christmas trail and jingle at Christmas time when there's so much love and effort that's gone into... I fancy another one. There we go. ID Supreme's Christmas, that's what this is.
91 FM, BBC Radio 2.
Anyway, that's quite enough of that. So here we go with another podcast, another download featuring all your dodgy confessions, all seeking forgiveness from the juggernauts of justice. This week's concise collection, that's just the three because of the bank holiday, features Walking the Dog, Baby Driver, and Everybody's Gotta Learn Sometime. Here they all come. Father Simon, Brother Matt and Sister Bobby, it starts quite prosaically. With the passing of Easter, my thoughts turn painfully again to a terrible sin committed a few years ago that really wouldn't have happened at any other time of year. It was, I must stress, in the most innocent of circumstances, and without wishing to be presumptuous, I hope the collective will find it in their hearts to forgive a good deed which went terribly wrong. One fine Easter weekend, my husband and I set out with our dog for a bracing walk out of the village and into the surrounding fields. This familiar route involves a short walk to the outskirts of our village and into a small area of woodland which leads onto and then opens out into the fields beyond. I did do a kind of a slight if you're eating warning, didn't I, earlier?
Right, well, you've done it now,
Okay,
haven't you?
yeah, okay, okay.
We're fine.
As responsible dog owners, we always carry poo bags. In fact, every pocket of every garment each of us owns seems to be a home for a poo bag or two. We keep a keen eye on our dog to pick up after her when nature calls, as all dog owners must. So far, not a foot wrong.
Quite right.
Everything is good. Anyway, on this occasion, she'd produced the goods just as we entered the small wooded area, so we dutifully cleaned it up. And to save ourselves from having to carry a little bag of nastiness around with us, Bobby sounds as though she knows what's happening. For the duration of the walk, we did what we invariably do and hung it up on a low-hanging branch in a prominent position just at face height to remind us to collect it and bin it on our return. No one wants dog poo in their pocket for a prolonged period. This is quite common practice in the dog walking community, apparently.
Is it?
Well,
Hang on.
there's a new regime on the cusp.
Okay, we'll look forward. We'll look forward to the breaking news from the cusp of dog walking clearing up in a bit. It might not get on the 6 o'clock. We then continued on our walk, safe in the knowledge that we'd done our bit as good citizens. About an hour later, we returned along the same route, back through the fields and into the wooded area. I was quite surprised to see that lots of other people appeared to have hung their dog poo bags up to the shrubs and the small trees. Must be a lot of dog walkers around. Easter weekend, I thought to myself, maybe that's what happens. Although in hindsight, this was a strange thought, as we'd not seen many other walkers on this route. And as we walked on, it became apparent that there were lots of children in the woods and smaller groups of adults. The children were highly excited, clutching carrier bags and running around, searching for the undergrowth, in the undergrowth and amongst the aforementioned shrubbery. To our horror, it became clear after asking one of the adults that in the intervening hour since we'd passed that way, some of the parents from the adjacent houses had set up an Easter egg hunt for their children. And yes, they'd protected the chocolate eggs by putting them in plastic bags, which bore a remarkable resemblance to the bags we had been using. They had then hidden them around the woodland, but obviously made it fairly easy for children to find them by, say, hanging them from face-height branches, which is what you do. I'm sure you can imagine the cold feeling that crept up our spines when we realised the potential ramifications of this unfortunate turn of events. With a new and more urgent spring in our step, we hastened along the path, grinning nervously at the proud parents who proudly watched their offspring as they gleefully grabbed the bags of goodness and stuffed them into their carrier bags to be carried and enjoyed later on. Imagine then, Father Simon, the plunging feeling of horror when we arrived at the tree where we had left our full poo bag and found the branch to be empty. We did the decent thing and informed the parents of what had happened and the mistake that we'd made. Oh, actually, no, we didn't. We legged it out of the woods before there were any screams of dismay and disgust, and therefore avoided a potential lynching from a group of outraged parents. I don't really want to think about the way the rest of that morning might have unfolded for one unsuspecting child who would have had the most unexpected of prizes when they opened their carrier bag to survey the loot. Best not to dwell on it, I reckon, but it can't have been very much of a treat. So we beg forgiveness for that traumatised child who may well have been put off chocolate for life. However, that could be a silver lining. Might have saved them from a life of too much sugar, if you look at it that way. Kirsty and Robert, then, I think they were trying to do the right thing. Although Bobby will have news of this exciting new discovery. What do you say, Sister Bobby?
Well, this is really easy to forgive because they didn't intend any harm and everything was good. You know, who's to know that was going to happen? And they didn't know. I suppose they could have told the parents and warned them. That's the only thing. But you had no malice in you, so I'm going to forgive you because you had no malice.
What should they have done then with this?
They should have gone to the parents and said, "Look, just to tell you."
No, with the new clearing up.
Right. So first of all, Jeremy Vine dedicated an hour to this. What it is because people are because the bags don't disintegrate. So what happens is all over National Trust land,
yes, I
there
remember.
are these little bags. Where it'd be much better to get a stick. So the whole thing is use a stick,
that's
not a
right.
bag.
And you flick it. That's
and
right. I
flick it,
remember you
stick
did
and
that thing.
flick.
Yeah.
So that
and
is
Claire
the new
Balding was
regime.
saying that's the thing you can do in the countryside. Anyway, we're not
Flicking it where?
Well, just somewhere
off
else.
the track into the undergrowth, so it can,
Over your neighbour's
degrade
hedge.
naturally. We've done that confession already.
I know, that was a good one, wasn't
it?
it?
Was.
Anyway.
Forgiven.
Okay, so what do you say, brother?
Well, I, for one, am fully behind this new regime which says you can't hang your dog offering in a bag on a tree. Because I think people are just using that, the whole, I'm going to go back for it later. Sounds like an excuse to me. Sounds like I'm not actually going to go back. I'm just hanging it up. And if I ever get caught, then I'm just saying I'm going back for it later. I'm not buying that for 1 minute. I say, yes, coming down on a ton of bricks on this particular confessee and saying definitely not forgiven. I don't think you ever had any intention of taking
It's
that bag
not a very
back.
nice thing just to
Yes,
hang it on a tree.
Absolutely,
anyway.
yeah. What are you doing putting it on a tree? Carry it with you. It's your dog. Carry it with you. So I am not going to forgive.
Father Simon and the Hopefully Forgiving Collective, the sin of this confession is continuing. It is ongoing. In fact, it's possibly happening right now as this is being read.
Goodness me.
What on earth is going on? I hope this isn't too salacious. It's not at all. I seek penitence in relation to my son, Callum, who has recently turned 21. But the incident started 18 months ago. My son, like many boys his age, decided that the time had come to learn to drive. Lessons were sorted, theory was sat, quite a few times, and a test date was booked. Fortunately, Callum clearly takes after his father and passed his test first time with the minimum amount of lessons. Soon after passing his test, the subject of a car came up. Now, as anyone with similar-aged children will know, the issue these days is not the actual purchase of the car, though that's bad enough, but the insurance to drive it. You may be aware that some insurance companies offer to install a black box into the car that monitors the driver's skills, braking, accelerating, speeding and so on, and in return the driver can get a slightly cheaper premium. Okay? Yeah. Right. All with us so far. So amongst much debate, a less than glamorous but perfectly good second-hand Corsa was purchased. The car had to stay off the road for a few days whilst we waited for the black box to be installed. And when the tech duly arrived, we fitted the box somewhere in the bowels of the dashboard. Now, because one is normally restricted to certain driving times with these black boxes, I explained to Callum that we had to get special dispensation because he worked nights. And so following a test drive with me sitting in the passenger seat, I am qualified in high speed and advanced driving due to my role as a retained firefighter. Callum was allowed to drive. Now, it's fair to say that Callum's initial driving skills were not fantastic, and I very soon got a speeding flag from the insurers. I called Callum to tell him, and he immediately asked, was it down Norse Road? I explained that it was, and it was where the road changed from 40 miles an hour to 30. He didn't exceed the limit for very long, but it had registered. He confessed that he thought he might have gone further at 40 than he should have and promised to take more care. I reminded him that as he was paying for his own insurance, continual incidents would cost him more money and may even result in his insurance being cancelled. I continued to keep him regularly informed of late braking, sudden acceleration and various other minor issues, plus 1 or 2 further speed-related misdemeanours, one of which was near his girlfriend's. When I spoke to him about it, he confessed that he hadn't noticed the limit had changed from a 30 to a 20, and this got him a proper telling off from his girlfriend, which was rather amusing as we were in the supermarket at the time. So, now fast forward several months, and I proudly informed Callum that as his driving record was, quote, reasonable in the year he'd been driving, he had no accidents or driving convictions, his premium had come down by hundreds of pounds, although it's still over 1,000. But anyway, it had come down an awful lot of money.
That's good.
His first question was, can I lose the black box now? But I advised him that sadly the reduction was based on him keeping the black box for another year, much to his dismay. Callum reluctantly agreed, and even today I still advise him whenever I get a flag and he continues to drive Miss Daisy, as I call it.
That's not his girlfriend. That's the
No.
car.
No, I think it's just probably the style. Well, it could
Yes.
be. It
Could be Daisy as well, driving Miss Daisy
it could
with
just
Daisy
be the
as well.
style of driving.
Just checking.
Uh-huh.
So where do you think this is going?
I think I know where
I
this is
know.
going.
Well, here's my confession, Father Simon. You see, there is no black box.
No.
In fact, there never has been a black box. I actually made it all up. Admittedly, I did look into getting a black box when the insurance was initially taken out, but perhaps because of his age, there really wasn't much difference in price, so I felt adding the box wasn't worth doing. So I seek forgiveness, not from Callum, after all, it was for his safety, and not from his passengers, it was for their safety also, but from the many drivers that may have been stuck behind my son, moving very carefully at 28 miles an hour, just to make absolutely certain he doesn't get any more flags. Well, I suspect Matt's going to like this one because it's deceiving the children,
Yeah.
and Bobby's looking quite pleased with herself as well. So what do you say, Sister Bobby?
Because I think this is a fabulous idea and we should all do it. Because I think I would probably do the same. I've had younger siblings that have gone out and driving and I've kind of not slept at night thinking, what are they going to do? Because the thing is about driving is you're all over it when you're young. You think, yep, I know exactly what I'm doing. Of course, it's everyone else that's the problem. So I think in any way that you can slow them down and give them some space and time to learn, actually, the road does not belong to you and actually you can't predict everything. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a great thing. I think he did a good thing and he should keep doing it for at least till they're 35.
Do you think so?
Yeah, at least.
I just wonder what if Callum is listening to this.
Cat might be out the bag now, really, isn't it?
You did 18 months? You bound her. Anyway,
Yes.
Brother Matthew.
Well, I mean, surely the culprits here are the insurance companies for not offering a decent enough incentive for putting the black box, the real black box, in the car in the first place. But you know, I mean, he's been driving carefully now, and his premiums are coming down. So it appears to me everyone has won. Not only has James won by being able to deceive his son, which frankly, when they get to the age of 21, they are insufferable by that age anyway. So anything you can do to get one over them, brilliant. I'm all in favour of that. And you know, Callum's also seen his costs come down. Win, win, win. Everyone wins. Well done. It's the
right.
new Britain.
Dear Father Simon and the eminent Grease, my confession takes us back to the Cold War, or the English winter of 1976 to be more precise. Back then, I get this, back then I was one of many young men and women to serve his country in the murky grey world of espionage, and it was a world filled with secrecy and cheating, lying and dirty tricks, and we were right in the thick of it. Yes,
The former spy. Oh, I say.
or current spy.
Could be a current spy.
Could be. Imagine.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed.
Could be a whole season. If you're an MI5 or MI6, I've got a confession. I'm sure you probably have.
I bet they've changed the name for this one then.
Well, you think they're not called Nevada? Anyway, let's see what happens here. It was easy to imagine the grim work that awaited us at our posting deep in the heart of the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, and Berlin. Different times, Matt.
Yeah.
However, before that could happen, we had to pass our exams. There's a great Python sketch. Right, I want to join the Secret Service. Can you keep a secret? Yes, right, well, you're in then. But it was more complicated than that. We were at a very special school based at an RAF station in the county of Rutland. I was one of a class of 5 airmen studying Russian in order for us to become, quote, radio operators, open brackets, voice, close brackets, in Ministry of Defence speak. However, As we all know, working in close proximity to a small group of colleagues over a long period can foster the growth of tension and irritation in the group. Not here, though. Our course was no different, and I take no pride in admitting I was one affected by these difficulties. We were all of differing linguistic abilities. Some grasped concepts quickly, whilst others were a little slower. And some had good memory skills, whilst others relied on cheating. One of our group, let's call him Stinky Pete, which is probably his code name, probably given by the Russians, I would think.
By the Russians?
I would think
really?
so. Yeah. He was the main perpetrator. Pull his sleeve up, and there were the words that he'd been expected to learn by heart. Turn his hands over, and there were some verb conjugations. Probe his brain, and, well, very little, actually, except a frantic, lip-licking panic, which we had all duly noted. Instead of studying like the rest of us, Sneaky Pete spent most of his time off camp and away from our accommodation, visiting his girlfriend, no doubt laughing at our late nights with the books, whilst he enjoyed other things. Simon. Therefore, conversations among the rest of us turned to hubris, schadenfreude, and other Cold War code names. The weeks and months rolled on, and honest men's toil was matched by sloth and indolence beefed up by cheating. We watched and waited for Providence to provide a solution. It was coming, but we didn't know it. The day of the final exam arrived. If we could pass this, we would move on to the next phase, how to employ the language we'd studied so hard, and then onto the historic city of Berlin and the intrigue of Cold War Europe. Whilst our brain... This is a movie.
It is.
Actually, it's not. It's a shabby sketch. Whilst our brains were crammed full, Sneaky Pete had essentially written on every part of his body and had no more skin left to write his answers on. However, this didn't deter Pete, and his masterstroke was only revealed when he produced a new pencil case and spread the 8-sided pens on his desk. It must have taken him hours to do, but each side of each pen had been carefully annotated with vocabulary or adjectival declensions or verbal conjugations in tiny writing. The effort was impressively monumental and very irritating to all of us, and Sneaky smirked as he showed us. When the invigilator, Mr. Mileson, entered, he checked the desks were clear of paper before he could issue the question papers. At this point, Sneaky Pete asked to be excused as he needed the loo, always a telltale sign, so we had to wait for him to return before the exam could begin. No words were exchanged by us, but two stepped forward to engage Mr. Mileson in last-minute questioning, whilst the other two, no names, no pack drill, loitered behind. Finally, Pete returned, and Mr. Mileson gave the question papers out and pressed the stopwatch. We had 2 hours. Well, those 2 hours flew by, but there was an early distraction. The frantic, lip-licking, panicked shuffling of pens from Sneaky Pete's desk and curses barely stifled. Pete then requested to be excused as he felt ill, but Mr. Mileson told him he would be disqualified if he left without handing his completed paper in. He sulked for the rest of the time, biting his lips, sighing and frowning as he turned his pens over and over. See, Father Simon, the writing on his pens had disappeared, with not so much as a Cyrillic letter left, and Sneaky Pete just had to get on with it like the rest of us. At the end of the exam, all 4 of us visited the washroom, 2 to use the loo and the others to wash their now ink-stained hands. I passed my exam with extremely high marks, as befits a SWAT. Sneaky Pete? Well, surprisingly, he did pass, but only with the bare minimum of acceptable marks. We reckon he only passed because the powers that be didn't want their stats to look bad. Anyway, the powers that be, that'll be MI5 then. Anyway, we all went on to Berlin, and as you would imagine, from an intelligence operative, I couldn't possibly elaborate on what happened there. But I crave forgiveness and understanding from the panel of learned judges for the charitable actions taken by we band of Cold War warriors. Wow, how about that? From the depths of the Cold War, an MI5/MI6 Secret Service confession. I mean, basically, it's an cheating an exam confession. But what an incredible work of art those pens must have been. The 8-sided pencils and pens with Cyrillic script engraved into each of them. You would have thought that Mr. Mileson, who was the invigilator, he being an MI6 operative, might have spotted someone trying to cheat, really. But anyway, Sister Bobby, what do you think?
Well, I was thinking actually Sneaky Pete might be quite a rubbish spy. actually, because he didn't manage to conceal his kind of works, did he? He wasn't kind of hiding. He wasn't going, yes, I've studied, I'm going... It just seems a bit rubbish. It seems a bit half-hearted. He wasn't really in the spirit of spying, because obviously what you do is you pretend to study and then go and do something else, and you don't show off, look how much I'm cheating.
But if you're doing a spying exam, isn't it quite good to sneak things in and secret codes?
No, because you're telling everybody and everyone can see. I think he's a really rubbish spy, but also your active sabotage, absolutely perfect, absolutely justified as well. Well done.
In the national interest, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. We need spies who know stuff, because you can't have your pencils always with you, can you? Anyway.
That's almost like a life...
Forgiven for your active sabotage.
A lesson to learn in life. Nigel, I'm going to try that now. Remember, you can't always have your pencils with you. Anyway, what do you think?
Or a calculator or anything like that. And I have quite a big pencil box in my life, always have done. Stinky Pete, you see, he basically spent so much time doing it. He could easily have learnt it in all that time, couldn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
no one, and Nebraska and all the others, they're all there watching him doing all the different stuff, and they just think, well, it's not fair, because he made such a big fuss of it, didn't he? He came out, he was gloating. He was going over and thinking, look at me, I'm clever. Well, you're not. Although, they didn't fail him, so obviously he was a pretty resourceful spy, so I think he'll go on to do great things. So on this occasion... Not forgiven, Stinky.
What do you say, Brother Matthew?
Inspired, Nige. Yeah. Inspired. I am.
Whatever it was you said.
Yes, I am going to say number one. How is he passing this exam when he's not done any revision, and then the methods that he was going to use to cheat are taken away from him, and yet he still passes. He still gets through, and he's off to East Berlin. How does that work? Girlfriend. Yeah, and also, if he was inking every part of his body with the answers to the question, what was it? Was he going to strip off halfway through? This invigilator, who, by the way, doesn't sound like he was doing anything at all, if he didn't spot an 8-sided pencil with all the answers written on him, was he going to do anything when he saw a bloke taking his shirt off so he could answer question 3? I'm going to say definitely forgiven, because, frankly, this test didn't sound that tough at all.
Well, they were this week's confessions, and who did you forgive? Well... Send in your own shadowy secret, perhaps inspired by one of those. confessions@bbc.co.uk. If you missed any drive time shows in the last week, thanks. I mean, really. You can listen again. You can check them out on the BBC iPlayer radio app. You can download them to your smartphone or tablet. Monday, we had an All Request Monday. The Radio 2 Book Club on Tuesday with Angie Thomas talking about her New York Times best-selling debut, The Hate You Give. Wednesday, Mike Rutherford was in the studio to talk about his new Mike and the Mechanics album and to tell us why occasionally he's been mistaken for Jesus, which, when you think about it, makes a whole lot of sense. And on Foodie Thursday, Nigel whipped up English asparagus with garlic and ginger butter and a warm new potato salad. If you made it to the end of the last podcast a few weeks ago, I asked you to tweet, Billy Bragg tattooed my goat. It made sense at the time. Thanks to Michelle Robinson, Mrs. Willoughby, Mark Gorman, Tokyo Fox and Stephen Brennan, amongst the many who did just that. And this week's code phrase is, in all honesty, Simon, nobody wants a warm salad. Thank you.